Hello, welcome everybody. We are so excited for National Pollinator Week and our Pollinator Power Party. We have thousands of people registered for the party this week, and our goal is to reach 2.5 million people in 5 days. So we need you to join the party, share, and post. We can't do it alone. All we can do is kind of set the table, and then you guys join and actually make it a party. So I wanted to just pause for just a minute before we get into the party to acknowledge Juneteenth, which is also known as Black Freedom Day. It's a very important day, and I just wanted to pause and say that EPRI acknowledges this day, and we also are committed to social equity and justice. If you registered for the party, you would have received in the mail or will receive soon in the mail a couple things. We have a really pretty party program, multiple pages printout. You would get a sticker for the Pollinator Power Party. Also, you get a science fact sheet that we're going to go over later this week. It's called Lovely Lepidoptera, about butterflies and moths. And you would have gotten origami paper. So what's the deal with the origami paper? So part of the party is to acknowledge also art and music and cooking and other aspects of pollinators. So we mailed you, everybody got 3 sheets of origami paper, or if you register for the party, you will receive this. And then we have instructional videos on our website to fold a bat, a cicada, and a butterfly. And some folks are already doing these and posting on social media. Thank you. Shout out to everybody that's doing their origami folding and sharing with us. If you register also for the party, you get prizes. So there'll be a daily prize drawing, including posters, books. There's a cookbook. There's all kinds of prizes that if you actually join in the live event, you can receive those prizes. We're happy for you to watch over YouTube and see the live stream as well. And you're free to do that at any time. Everything's going to be posted to YouTube. So if you want to sort of binge watch about pollinators over the weekend, you'll be able to do that. On Friday this week, we have Mythbusters. So if you are always had maybe strange questions about pollinators or things that are just kind of on your mind, are butterflies really pollinators? Do all bees sting? Can bees see in the dark? Do bats suck blood? Just the strangest things, we take them all. And we have our scientists live on Fridays. So throw your questions over the wall. You can email them. You can put it on our hashtag #PowerOnPollinators, and we'll ask those. We can answer all those questions. So for today, a really special day today to kick off our party is our keynote lecture. We have a lecture from Lucas Garibaldi, and he's going to get us a little bit deeper on this topic about the connection between pollinators and human health and then ecological health. We always hear about 1 in 3 bites of food. That's kind of the soundbite, right? Now we're going to get a little bit deeper on that topic today. We also have dispatches from the field from Arizona Public Service and Tennessee Valley Authority, and some kids are going to be part of this whole party this week. So join us in the actual live event. Chat. Lucas is going to be on. I'm going to be on. Chat your questions. We're ready to engage with you all week long. Okay, so let's get this party started.
Hello, I'm Jessica Fox with the Electric Power Research Institute, and I am here with
Kelly Rourke, and I'm the Executive Director of Pollinator Partnership.
And we are just here to welcome you to the Pollinator Power Party 2022.
The Power Party is part of National Pollinator Week, which takes place each year in June. This is our 16th year. Pollinator Partnership started this back in 2006, and each year we just raise awareness about the importance of pollinators, offer resources and activities and ideas for everyone to participate, and really just celebrate pollinators and everything they give to our environment. We engage people at the local, state, and federal level in writing proclamations in support of Pollinator Week. So this year we've got the Secretary of the Interior, Secretary of the Department of Agriculture, and the EPA Administrator as well. So we're just really excited to be co-hosting this year, the Power Party. We are wearing matching t-shirts, which are offered actually through Pollinator Partnership through the end of June, so you can get one. And yeah, we're just thrilled to be here with EPRI and bring all of the wonderful events of the week to you at your home.
So I wanted to be sure to recognize the collaborators of the Power and Pollinator Initiative, which makes this party possible. It's the largest collaboration of electric power companies thinking about what they can do for pollinators and what their role is in conservation. So if you join us every day for 1 hour a day for 5 days, you're going to walk away inspired after this week. So just have your lunch if you're on the Pacific Coast, or have your coffee if you're on the East Coast. And we are literally bringing some of the world's best scientists to your living room.
We're gonna pump you up about pollinators.
So one of the things that kind of keeps me going and keeps me inspired about conservation and what we can be doing around the earth and our own gardens is just sitting in a garden setting and in our own spaces, and pausing from the regular workday and everything that's going on, and taking some time to sort of recalibrate and just settle down with the system that's around us. And one of those things for me is the bumblebee. I love bumblebees. I just love them. I think that they are beautiful, and it's remarkable that they can even fly. They have those huge, fat, furry bodies, right? You just want to go and hug them. When you come out of that space of sort of being inspired by what you see in your own gardens and your own settings, and thinking about, well, how can I do more? How can I help other people be inspired, and then make the business case for these conservation projects, and what does it mean for their business and their daily lives. So working with power companies sort of creates that opportunity. It's just a phenomenal place to work, is at this nexus with companies that have daily decisions that they have to make on their land and their properties. These are great ideas from a theoretical standpoint, but now we have to go and do it. And that's some of the work that we've been doing at the Electric Power Research Institute, is working with these companies on actually implementing these projects. And we're super proud to be able to do that and share some of that. And then through the Pollinator Power Party, share with everybody, with students, with kids, and with adults and executives, what we're learning that applies to all of us. How do we translate that deeper science and the more complicated aspects of pollinators into information and resources that everybody can understand and connect to their own lives, and think through, why do pollinators, aside from just the existence of them, what do they mean to me in my daily life? And we are just really grateful to have the opportunity to provide the stage, and we invite you to share and celebrate with us.
Today's obscure pollinator is the flower fly, Syrphidae. Most people probably know how to spot bees in their gardens and local parks, but nature is deceiving and full of mimics, and one group of pollinators, flower flies, are especially good at this deception. These flies are bee mimics, whose appearance is used to protect themselves from predators, and sometimes adopting behaviors of their original bee inspirations. One of these mimics, Aristalis tenax, or the drone fly, looks so much like a honeybee that it even has a similarly hairy body like a honeybee, enough to be an effective pollinator of many plants. Flower flies are not only important pollinators, but also play a key role in biocontrol, as the larvae of many species feed on crop-damaging aphids. So, how do you tell the difference between a bee and a flower fly? Bees have 4 wings, while flower flies have only 2, along with shorter and stubbier antennae. However, their eyes are much larger, covering most of their head. With nearly 900 species of flower flies in North America, these pollinators are hard to miss.
We are out here today on one of our right-of-ways to film some footage for the dispatches from the field. We are here in a beautiful place in the Tennessee Valley, catching some footage of some of the pollinator efforts that are underway, and hope you enjoy this dispatch.
What we're really looking to do out here is quantify or assess the importance of these TVA transmission line rights of way for pollinators and grassland plants in a regional context.
We're standing in the right-of-way below Douglas Dam. This area was also planted along with the overlook. We've got roughly around 25 to 30 species of native plants, including a lot of native plants that came through the seed bank.
We are standing here under one of our transmission right-of-ways in Monroe County next to National Forest property. And we are looking for an endangered butterfly called the frosted elfin. It likes a smaller, delicate host plant, a wild indigo species. And we have found that species of plant, as well as the butterfly, has been found in these rights-of-ways nearby. So we're looking for other places in the right-of-way that may have this host plant. Now this right-of-way section is not ideal for the butterfly species. It's too grown up with all these woody stems, and they've crowded out and shaded out the host plant. However, we've seen the host plant on the margins, so we know it's here. So if we get rid of these wooded species with herbicide or whatever integrated vegetative management plan is necessary for this area, that host plant should be able to come back up again and provide habitat for this rare butterfly.
We have people here from the National Forest and the National Forest Foundation, as well as all the volunteers, which includes people from Yavapai Apache Nation and other people from all over Arizona. Okay, you guys mixed it up good already? Okay, now it's time to add some seeds. We're trying to make seed balls for the pollinators, so we're putting seeds in a clay and soil mixture, and we're going to put those out under the power lines to create a corridor for pollinators. I think pollinators are very important because they're an indicator of the whole ecosystem. You know, bees are important for pollinating the plants, and that creates the seeds that create the next generation of plants. So without pollinators, there wouldn't be any plants. And without plants, there wouldn't be any animals.
Connor?
Oh, you guys are making good ones.
Look at that.
These are some of the prettiest ones I've seen anyone making.
Why, thank you.
My job at APS is protecting the environment while making sure we can do the projects that we need to do to maintain the power lines. And so I see, volunteer events like this where we're getting people interested in the environment and we're helping to protect the environment as part of my job. It's just helping to support the environment in Arizona.
My favorite is the bumblebee. It's because it's really cute and fuzzy and it could pollinate tomatoes, and most bees don't really pollinate tomatoes.
My favorite species probably gonna be the bat because I like how they go real fast, and cause they go real fast, or they could go high up in the air, and they usually go in the nighttime. They won't really be if you go, you're not really gonna be outside in the night, so they're not really gonna be interrupting your day.
What we need to do to save pollinators is, to stop killing them, and we need to save them by stop using a lot of chemicals, have them, and we need to plant more flowers in order for them to get more pollen and help our planet.
That honeybees are not the only pollinators, and actually little things that go on your neck while you're sweating, those are also pollinators. So there are pollinators all around us.
Bee health and its impact on human health. How are we affected by the world around us? Our environment's harmony, health, and beauty are based, to a large extent, on the variety of its flora and fauna. Since we are part of the environment, our well-being is also linked to this biodiversity. When we speak of healthy bee communities, we refer to those having sustained species diversity over time. But how is this linked to our well-being? Studies over the last 10 years have shown 4 main positive aspects of healthy bee communities over humans. First, nutrition. Bees are the main pollinators of most food crops. Therefore, they benefit the quantity and nutritional quality of vegetables, fruits, and seeds, essential foods for our diets. Second, unique and valuable products. Bees produce honey, pollen, propolis, royal jelly, and wax, and also pollinate approximately 28,000 medicinal and aromatic plants. There is strong evidence that these products and foods improve our well-being when used as medicines and cosmetic supplies. Third, mental health. The green spaces and biocultural landscapes that bees help sustain are environments that we enjoy, allow us to connect with life in nature, and improve our mental health. Beekeeping and agrotourism in its all variants are fundamental examples of activities that contribute to human well-being. 4. Less polluted environments. Bees depend heavily on plants and are highly affected by pollutants such as agrochemicals, heavy metals, and biocides. Initiatives seeking to minimize their use to ensure pollinators' health, reduce toxic waste, and promote healthier environments for all. To summarize, diverse communities are a good indicator of healthy environmental conditions for human beings. Hello, I'm very happy to share with you my talk entitled Exploring Connections Between Pollinators and Human Health. So here on the left, you can see pollinator health, and on the right, you can see human health and how they are linked together. So we have identified 4 pathways in which pollinator health and human health are linked. The first one is through nutrition. So most of the seeds and the fruits that we eat comes from plants that benefit from the visit to their flowers of pollinators like bees, butterflies. uh, the second mechanism is medicines. So many people don't know, but around 28,000 of medicinal plants in the world depend also to some level on pollinators to set seeds or fruits. So in this way, through pollination, pollinators provide nutrition, they provide food, but they also provide medicines. Many pollinators also provide us medicines in a direct way, like honey or propolis, like the honeybees. The third pathway is through mental health. So pollinators, through pollination, they contribute to the maintenance and the improvement of green spaces and biocultural landscapes. In these green areas, we walk, we connect with nature, and we improve our mental health. The fourth pathway is environmental quality. Uh, if you go to a place and you see a high diversity of pollinators, so many different species of bees and other animals that pollinate flowers, that means that it's an environment that has less pesticides and pollutants. So in that environment, you will see clean water, clean air, and clean food. And this is very positive, not only for pollinators, but also for human health. So in general, those environments or those landscapes that are friendly for the diversity of pollinators, and if you want, we can focus on the diversity of bees, they also friendly to human health, and humans can live in those environments very happily and in a positive way. However, all over the world we are seeing the opposite trend. So environments are being destroyed for pollinators, and not only for pollinators, but for many other groups of animals like amphibian, mammals, birds, reptiles, even fishes. You can see there on the left how the number of species through time disappear for these different groups. So we have said previously that those environments that are friendly for bees and pollinators, they are also friendly for human beings. And now we are seeing that all over the world, we are destroying this environment, not only for bees, but for the diversity of species in general. And on the right side of the slide, you can see that associated with that, there is increasing use all over the world of pesticides and agrochemicals. And we call this in general external inputs to the farms. And why it's important to talk about the farms and about the external inputs? And this is because the main reason for biodiversity loss and for bee loss in general is what we call land use change. That means transforming this kind of biodiverse landscapes into some simplified landscapes like crop monocultures or even tree monocultures. So you can see that in this different landscape, we only have one plant species. We don't have diversity of plants, and by having no diversity of plants, we don't have resources for bees or for other animals. And this is not only a problem of bee lovers or animal lovers or conservationists. This is a problem for all human beings because, as I said at the beginning of my talk, the diversity of bees and bee health is directly linked to human health. We live within an ecological system, and within that ecological system, the environment that we need, the food that we need, and the mental connections that we need to live a happy and healthy life depends on diversity of species, and in particular, the diversity of bees. So by destroying nature, we destroy what we call nature contributions to people. And it is not um, it is not a surprise that given the destruction of nature that is happening all over the world, we are doing very poor progress even in the targets that we agree internationally across all the countries, like the Aichi biodiversity targets or even the Sustainable Development Goals. So this is highly associated to the destruction of biodiversity and to increase use of external input associated to crop or plant monocultures. So our planet, our house, is like this. Is a house that it used to provide a lot of contributions to good quality of life. But nowadays, because we are destroying the service providers, and the service providers are the bees or the other species that provide clean water, clean air, etc., our house, our planet, is losing its capacity to sustain human life. And as I said before, the main cause of biodiversity loss is land use change, and that is the way in that we produce trees, the way in that we produce crops, and the ways in that we breed and we take care of our animals. So, and the main process of agronomy in general and forestry in general is called conventional intensification. So conventional intensification is a process in which we want to increase productivity, and we call that crop yield, productivity per area. And it is based in this industrialized landscape, these monocultures, and it is also based in providing resources to these monocultures through external inputs. That is, if the plant needs nutrients, we provide a lot of fertilizers. If we have pests that are taking nutrients from the plant, we apply pesticides. So these kind of landscapes that are based on conventional intensification, they need a lot of external inputs. So what we need in contrast to that is a process of what we call ecological intensification. So the idea is, instead of losing diversity, so conventional intensification means more productivity, less diversity. And ecological intensification means more diversity and more productivity. So instead of destroying biodiversity, we base our production systems or on biodiverse landscapes. And the idea is that this diversity of species in the soil, for example, provide and improve nutrient cycling, and by improving nutrient cycling, they provide nutrients to the plants. And in this way, we replace, complement, or create synergies, for example, with external inputs like fertilizers. So the idea of ecological intensification is a process in which year after year we use less external inputs, we increase biodiversity, and in this way we provide resources to the crop, and we also increase crop productivity, but without destroying nature. So this is a great process, as you can imagine, and everybody seems to agree with that. So the main question that it reminds, why the main process all over the world is conventional intensification and is not ecological intensification. So some people may think that ecological intensification is not the main process all over the world because it provides less productivity, less crop yield. And we have analyzed this idea, and we compare all over the world different farms, some farms that follow conventional intensification and other farms that follow ecological intensification. And we compare these farms for the same crops under the same climate. And as you can see there, we focus on 344 fields that cover 33 crop systems. For example, one crop system is sunflower in South Africa, another crop system is raspberries in Patagonia, Argentina. And we did that over 5 years, and we measure crop productivity at the farm level. So what the farmers perceive and what the farmers harvest. And we have found that ecological intensification actually provide 24% more crop productivity, more crop yield than conventional intensification. So ecological intensification can be more productive than conventional intensification. So it reminds the idea that maybe so not all the farmers apply ecological intensification because it's more costly, it's less profitable, it provides less money. So we also analyzed this idea, and we actually found that ecological intensification is more profitable. It provides more money to the farmers because on the one side you have more income because it's more productive, and on the other side, because you need to buy less external inputs to the farm, you have less costs. So more income, less cost, so then you have more profitability. So it remains the question, so why not all the farmers in the world are using this ecological intensification process or are part of this ecological intensification process? There are many barriers to the incorporation of ecological intensification. And one of these barriers is that farmers need ecological knowledge. So as you have seen in the pictures before, conventional intensification is very simple. It's an industrial process, a monoculture covering the whole landscape. So it's very intensive in the use of external inputs, but is no intensive in the use of ecological knowledge. In contrast, ecological intensification is less intensive in the use of external inputs, but is more intensive in the use of ecological knowledge. So you need to, as a farmer, you need to know a little bit more about ecology, about how to bring biodiversity back to your farm, what is going to be the impact of that biodiversity, plant diversity, animal diversity into your crop productivity. So ecological intensification is more knowledge-based, and in this way, we as a scientists are working a lot with farmers and different stakeholders in trying to co-develop this knowledge to make ecological intensification happening all over the world. So basically, we want to develop, and we are developing this knowledge to transform these kind of homogeneous landscapes, which are based on conventional intensification that has less biodiversity and use a lot of external input, into more of these kind of landscapes that are based on ecological intensification, that they have more diversity and they use less external input. And here is critical to provide diversity in many different ways. So within the plot, as you see there in the crop, it's important to provide diversity by having more than one crop species, doing rotation, including what we call service crops, but also we need diversity at the landscape level. We need to produce different things, like you can see a pasture on the back, and we also need to provide different habitats for the different animal and the different animal species and the different bacteria species, etc. So there you see that this sunflower crop is next to an edge that also provides plant diversity of flowering plants for pollinators. And you can see on the back that there is a hill, there is some natural habitat conservation within this working landscape. And this is really important. So we need to preserve nature, not only on natural reserves, but also on the working landscapes. Nature itself and natural and semi-natural habitats, they have a very important role as providers of pollinators and many other beneficial contributions to human being within the working landscape. So it is very important, and we are studying and discovering all the benefits that nature preservation has within the working landscapes. So what can we do? Of course, as a scientist, we work a lot with the stakeholders, but most of us, we are also consumers, and most of us live in cities, and we have a lot of power to change things through our consumption patterns and through our consumption decisions. So we need to choose, for example, to eat more vegetables and more fresh foods that are produced locally, that are not traveling from far away, and they are produced in more biodiverse environments, and that they use less agrochemical in general. And the good thing is that if we choose a food for the environmental impact, they also have a higher nutritional impact and a better social impact, because in this way, choosing more fresh vegetable and fresh foods that are less industrialized and they are produced locally, they have these benefits in multiple directions. And of course, we need to work with producers, and we can become either producers, try to farm where we live, try to produce our own food, so we have a lower environmental print all over the world, and also discuss these ideas and advise and work with farmer and farming companies. So thank you very much for being with me in this keynote lecture. I'm very looking forward to your question. Thank you.
We just heard your lecture. Thank you for participating in the Pollinator Power Party this year and for
Thank you.
doing this.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're welcome. I wanted to get into a little bit more detail after your lecture. I think one thing that's highlighted in this that's really important is that there's this really common sort of reference to 1 in 3 bites of food is pollinator dependent. And that's, what everybody sort of talks about now is, why do we talk about pollinators? And that's sort of the first thing that sort of comes out of everybody's mouth and head is, well, if we don't have pollinators, we don't have a third of our food. But your work and your research is actually highlighting nuances of that are extremely important. So you mentioned, 28,000 medicines come from pollinators that for vitamin A deficiency. So even though 1 in 3 bites of food is pollinator dependent, there's micronutrients in the foods that are pollinator dependent. So 71 million people would be at risk of vitamin A deficiency if we didn't have pollinators anymore, right?
Yes, so I think that pollinators, and in particular pollinator diversity, that is, for example, the number of different species that we have of pollinators, the number of species that we have of bees, but also butterflies and other animals, they are kind of an indicator of how good is that environment to sustain human life in general. So if you go to some place and there is no habitat for diverse pollinator communities, so usually that environment is going to be degraded. So I think that by looking at pollinators, we can somehow use them as an indicator of how good is that environment and how much benefits can that environment provide to a good quality of life. So if you go to one place and you have a lot of diverse species of pollinators, so it's probably a place where you have diversity of plants, probably a place where you don't have many pollutants, you have clean air, clean food, clean water. So in that sense, I think that the importance of pollinators goes beyond our food production, that of course they are really important in that sense. And the importance of pollinators for our nutrition, it varies a lot according to where we live. So in some regions, pollinators are even more important because people depend way more on pollinator dependent plants. Also depend on how much money do you have, because if there are no pollinators and you have a lot of money, maybe you can afford to buy different type of foods, but most of the people in the planet can't. So the situation is, in general, is kind of more comprehensive in a way.
So if there was, you had estimated that if we had a really serious decline in pollinators, that there would be another 1.4 million human deaths per year.
Well, that relates to, so in general in the world we have a lot of food production, more than we need in terms of energy. in terms of the calories that those foods provides. However, if we need to follow a more healthy diet, we are lacking of fruits and vegetables and nuts, and these are especially pollinator dependent crops. So we need more of these kind of crops, and if we suffer of pollinator deficit, then these type of foods are going to be more expensive, and less people will be able to access to them, and that creates kind of a negative loop, and it also increases the probability of have many important diseases that are related to how we uh, what we eat, how much we eat, but which kind of foods we eat. Again, we are eating, many of us, or many of the people in the planet are uh, suffering because of overweight, and they are suffering a lot of diseases related to overweight. And this is also related to an imbalance in the type of foods that they eat and the amount of foods that they eat. So many of the people in the planet should eat a little bit less, but they should eat more of certain type of foods, especially those that are pollinator dependent, that they provide a lot of vitamins and micronutrients that are really important for our health.
So, in terms of who would suffer the most, so you mentioned this just now in your comments and also in your papers. The folks that are least able to adapt and adjust are the ones that are the poorest around the world. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, exactly. Are the ones that are the poorest, and the ones also that they are more dependent on this type of foods that are pollinator dependent. So in certain regions like Asia or Africa, these two things combine, and they create a high risk to human life from pollinator deficits.
Well, and if there's 28,000 herbal medicines that are dependent on pollinators, then when folks get sick or are ill, they're least able to adapt and pay more for food and have options for selecting their diet. And then the medicines that they may use to treat themselves when they do get sick are would be in decline. So it kind of creates this kind of cascading set of issues, particularly if you don't have enough money to handle it.
Exactly, and I can add to that those places may, if they are so degraded, they will also have problems with water contamination or water supplies, and usually people that is poor, they don't have very good access to clean water. So that's also another issue that create a kind of this negative loop between environmental degradation and good quality of life.
Okay, so let's talk. I mean, I just find that it really, really helpful and interesting to get a little deeper on this conversation about what is the link between pollinators and me, or pollinators and human health. And that is extremely helpful to get beyond just the soundbite when you're in the elevator that says 1 in 3 bites of food, right? It's actually much more complicated, and actually, honestly, it sounds more severe than 1 in 3 bites of food.
Yeah, yeah, and of course, for our good quality of life, pollinators are not the only thing that matters, but they are a clear indicator. Again, they are a clear variable that we need to monitor. And if you live in an environment that is losing pollinator diversity, you are probably losing many nature's contribution to your good quality of life, and your environment and your health are probably being threatened because of that.
Wow. Okay, so you actually go to that place of maybe using pollinator health as an indicator of overall ecosystem health and human health.
Yeah, especially that one related to pollinator diversity, not necessarily only honeybees. Of course, honeybees are a good indicator of the environment, but they are kind of subsidized by the beekeepers. So the beekeepers,
Yes.
if there is no food, they take care of them. If the bees are sick, they try to protect them. But we should focus more on the wild bees, that they are even a better indicator of environmental health.
Okay, so that's the difference scientifically that we would call the difference between abundance and richness. So abundance is the number of bees out there. Richness is the diversity of bee species out there, right?
Exactly, yeah. And
So we're
here,
looking.
when we are talking about bee health, we focus at a general environmental level. So it's better to focus in kind of the bee species richness.
Richness, right? Okay. In terms of solutions, you wrote a really interesting paper that's titled "Working Landscapes Need at Least 20% Native Habitat." Now, this idea of working landscapes is really interesting. Your lecture that you just gave talks about how farming systems, you may be able to co-locate elements of habitat that are important while also producing the crops. And you kind of lay out a potential argument that you can have higher profit, higher biodiversity, and because of that, maybe healthier human communities. Is that realistic that we can have people, planet, and profit? That typically those are the three pillars of this of the sustainability stool, right? Always conflicting.
Yes, is realistic, and we are implementing these kind of solutions in many different places of the world. So we should move from that view in terms that the farms and the agricultural systems they are only focusing on one function, crop production or crop productivity, and they should focus on multiple functions like crop productivity, clean air, clean water, protect biodiversity, help to regulate the climate, etc. And in this way, also, it's important that farmers are recognized if they try to protect all these services.
And this idea of using the same set of land and kind of going from this concept of a homogeneous landscape to this more heterogeneous landscape where you're having more functions and more uses of the land in the same area. That's something that in farming is, like you mentioned, is really a big scientific topic. It's becoming a really prominent topic also as we transition the energy system from fossil fuels to renewable fuels. So putting solar on the ground, and particularly solar that's ground mounted, so mounted on the ground versus rooftop solar, there's this new conversation going around, can we co-locate pollinator habitat or farms that, you know, the agrivoltaics or agri-solar or pollinator friendly solar, that sort of thing. What do you think about this idea of you know, we're looking at in the United States, 6 million acres has to be installed of ground mounted solar over the next decade or so. What do you think about this idea of trying to co-locate solar panels with farms or with pollinator habitat?
I think it's great. So, and again, this idea of multifunction. So, in a way, if we want to promote, for example, crop production, but we are only thinking about crop production, maybe we destroy other important services. And it happens the same with energy. If we want to provide energy, but when using the habitats, we are only focusing on energy and we do not take into account the other functions, we are going to create also a problem instead of a solution. So when we are deciding about land use, whether it use crop production or energy, we need to think in a multifunctional way. and we need to integrate the different contributions to people. And there are many ways to do it, to create these kind of synergies. So I think that what you are saying is really important and is the way to go. And we have been suffering a lot from previous political decisions that they are managing a land, and by managing a land, you influence many services and many different functions, but they are thinking only on one function. And this is a big problem.
But there is this all just really optimistic? Is this utopia thinking that maybe co-locating these things will who bears the cost of that work, and then who receives the reward? So farmers do the work to protect ecosystem services, which is a shift in thinking and a shift in culture too. And same with solar developers. It's, kind of matching up your solar energy developer with ecological knowledge, right? It's sort of requires more collaboration, more sort of crosswalking between these expert fields to get that to happen. It seems pretty complicated to try to work on that and make that actually realized.
Well, first is if we know what we want to achieve, if we have the vision of what we want to achieve, then there are many different social, political, and economic solutions to different contexts. And actually, these kind of solutions exist in many places in the world, and we have a lot of positive examples. And the positive examples are increasing. So the main problem is that the negative examples still increase at a faster rate than the positive examples. So the balance in terms of destruction is quite negative. So we are still losing diversity at a faster rate and at a rate that is increasing each year. But if we focus on the positive examples, actually we know what to do. And these are positive examples that are all over the world, that they are adapted to different socio-environmental conditions, and that they are working very well, they are profitable, etc. So the past decades, at least they show us that there are many alternatives and they can work in real world landscapes. We need to get involved, and we need to expand these kind of positive examples, and of course research and learn more. But there are already a lot of things that we could be doing and we are not doing.
So I wonder about this idea that for things to move forward is that there's going to have to be more collaborations between different expertise areas and things. Something that I work on with power companies is helping power companies collaborate, so that it's not just your plot of land or your farm or your right of way, but you're thinking about how your land that you manage integrates with the overall landscape. So instead of making decisions for me, my house, my property, we're starting to think about a systems-wide sort of approach that, yes, this is my property. If I do this and you do that, look at what we can sort of all get done together. What do you think of that idea?
Exactly, yeah, and that's one of the challenges also for forestry, agronomy, and cattle breeding of the past decades. Usually, each farmer was used to think independently of the others, and then environmental problems starting to happen, and we realize that we are connected and that we need to think with the system and landscape perspective.
Great. Lucas, thank you so much for the interview and for sharing. That was it was wonderful. We really appreciate you. And also, you're from Argentina and you travel around the world, so your perspective is very interesting and very helpful for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jessica, and congratulations again for this great initiative.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Gosh, the chat is blowing up today. You guys are chatting and talking and sharing ideas and tips, and that is just remarkable. You've come to the table and really making this a party. So kind of thinking more about this idea of collaboration that we were just talking about with Lucas, you guys are collaborating live time and using the party as a platform for sharing resources and information. So even though we're going to close the party pretty soon today, you can keep sharing on our hashtag #PowerandPollinators. You can also send us emails to pollinators@epri.com. And we'll try to consolidate all the input and feedback that we're getting. There's been a few questions that have come in the chat today that we're going to push to our Mythbusters on Friday about who's a pollinator and who's a not, and the role of wasps and butterflies and other things in our systems. For folks who join the party daily this week, we have a few special prizes that you'll be entered, will be randomly selected. One of them is a signed copy of Doug Tallamy's book, Nature's Best Hope. Another is a signed copy from Xerces Society, Gardening for Butterflies. And then also Pollinator Partnership is donating a pollinator education kit. They provide education kits for elementary and middle schools, and so it's a huge value. So a few special folks are going to win those prizes for joining every day this week, and then a few of you are going to win prizes just from today. We have a poster and cookbooks, and then our pollinator party calendar. You're going to enter a drawing just for joining one day. So thank you for joining today. Tomorrow, what's on deck tomorrow is our Garden Culture and Equity Day. So we have a really special opening for tomorrow. We have an elder tribal leader that's singing a blessing and a song for us to open our day tomorrow, called the Mother Earth song. You do not want to miss this. It's really neat. And then we're going to hear from Cherokee Nation Seed Bank about how some of the historic and culturally relevant seeds are being archived through a seed bank, and then also from a community leader in downtown urban Oakland, California, about how a pollinator garden in urban cities are changing lives for people, like really changing their lives. So we have a really special story to share with you tomorrow. So join us back tomorrow. Thank you so much for coming to the party. You guys are the bomb and making this a party. Spread the word. Okay, thank you. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place.